Greetings. I'm Moreh Yehuda, member of the Congregation of Israel, a representative of the NMP, the Nazarene Messianic Party. I'd like to welcome all of the listeners to What Is to Be Done podcast. Today we will be discussing Islam, Antichrist, Conquest, and Roman Christianity. Islam, Antichrist, Conquest, and Roman Christianity. This is also could be used as a reference or an addition to our discussion on the uh, Palestinian Zionist conflict. We want to discuss Islam and its origins in this session. This session is likely to lead to other sessions where we further examine Islam and identify it with what the Hebrew writers of the Gospels and the Judeo-Christian teachings argue is Antichrist. We also want to discuss an upcoming podcast pertaining to this subject, which will be another part, the conquest. And this conquest could be traced all the way back to actually the wilderness while the children of Israel were being led by Moses and Joshua. It is further documented with the return from exile from Babylon, with the governors Zerubbabel, Yehoshua ben Josedek, Haggai, Zechariah, and the others. This historical background will give us an understanding on the nature of the sons of Ishmael and their ideology, their conquest, and their transition from polytheism to a religion in which they call monotheistic or Islamic. In order to really grasp the nature of what's happening around us, especially with the growth of the Islamic bloc throughout the centuries, the historical background is very much necessary. Now, I argue, as well as others, that Islam, which was adopted by the Arabs, the sons of Ishmael, is none other than the Arabic form of Romish Christianity. The difference is that Romish Christianity continued to hold in high esteem the Hebrew scriptures. The Islamic form of Roman Christianity does away or undermines or in some aspects dismantle by way of their ideology the scriptures of the Judeo-Christians. So we're going to get started with our discussion, and we have to do a little bit of history on Islam. And let's go back all the way to Muhammad and his first wife, Khadijah. We want to start there because it is argued that Khadijah, Muhammad's wife, was counseled by a Christian scribe. It is also argued by some that Khadijah, Muhammad's wife, was actually a convert to Christianity. What is important for us to grasp in this research is that uh, there were different type of Christians during the days of Khadijah and Muhammad. That is, you had Judeo-Christians. Some uh, were under the school of the Ebionites. Some were under the school of the Nazarenes. And the Nazarenes is what some will argue is the authentic or the original band or party that had come forth from the apostles and Yeshua ben David himself. The Ebionites have various uh, sects themselves. Some accepted the Apostle Paul, some did not. They had differences also in the ideology concerning the divinity of Yeshua ben David. And among them, you also had a growing uh, population of Gentile Christians, namely under the school of Rome, which became the Roman Catholic Church or the Roman Catholic Assembly or the Universal Assembly. This form of Christianity is the Christianity which influenced Islam. And we're going to show you why we argue this. The proliferation of Islam today, its growth, and how it has infiltrated uh, certain countries, whether in Europe or in the Western Hemisphere in Americas. They infiltrated, for example, in America through the Black community, the so-called African American community, or the Black American community. And we want to investigate that as well. Very interesting finds to see how Islam found false prophets among the Black community, namely in whom is called Noble Drew Ali, and also another who followed Noble Drew Ali is Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad was catapulted into the world recognition by one El Hajj Malik Shabazz, otherwise known as Malcolm X. These Black Muslim organizations received support and recognition because of their association with celebrities. Muhammad Ali was a celebrity, which greatly helped bring recognition to the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam had a member there, Clarence 13X. Clarence 13X broke off from the Nation of Islam and started the teachings of the gods or the 5%ers. And the Nation of Islam continued to find more celebrity influence by rap groups such as Public Enemy, Professor Griff, and Clarence 13X definitely received recognition uh, by way of the 5%ers, by rappers and entertainers, Rakim and Grand Nubians, I believe, and others. We're going to look into it. And we're going to investigate why Islam began to take root in these so-called Black communities in America, to investigate it thoroughly. Um, but just as the Black community uh, being affected by the racist teachings, the doctrine of race theory, being influenced and psychologically scarred by this false doctrine of race, they begin, as well as many in the world, they begin to rebel against anything that was white, no matter what it was. As long as it wasn't white, they were ready to run to it. Little did they know that the religion that they thought was the Black man's religion was actually founded and established by white and Black people, actually. The Roman Catholics um, began to spread their doctrine among the Arabs, and the Arabs went on conquest, and they further spread this doctrine into further parts of Africa and Asia. Islam, the history of Islam. We want to look into this and gather some information. Now, when we're looking at Islam conquest, we also have to take note of what was written by the elders of the Hebrew scriptures. We're going to investigate, namely, 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 2 Timothy chapter 3, and Galatians chapter 1. We're going to investigate them and juxtapose it to what we learn about Islam. Okay? We want to do that. But before that, we want to investigate Islam and how it began to spread and its foundations. So bear with us here as we look into this Islam. Now, before the rise of Islam in the 7th century, it has been said that a substantial Arab population in the Near East and in the Arabian Peninsula converted to Christianity. We're going to look at this. It is also argued major tribes like the Ghassanids or Ghassanids and the Lakhmids or Lakhmids, they were greatly influenced by Roman Christians through trade, and they were in close proximity to the Roman Empire. So these Muslims, or excuse me, Arabs, were very familiar with Roman Christian teachings and also Judaism and its teachings. Mhm. Now, I argue that we want to start with um, Khadijah. It's argued that she was a Christian. And one of her counselors was her cousin. But what do they say about Khadijah? If you ask a Muslim about Khadijah, what religion was Khadijah before she um, converted, became the first convert to Islam? They say she was a Hanifa, Hanifa. See, that is the cunning way for the Muslims to avoid the facts that their dear Khadijah was actually a convert to Christianity, some will argue. Why? Why would they argue that? Because Hanifa just simply means a true believer, one who is devout or upright or follow the right path. And in particular, an Hanifa is often described as one who follow a monotheistic faith. Now, if you go historically back to Khadijah, the records of the monotheistic, may I add, Abrahamic monotheistic faith. That's what the Muslims or Arabs will say the Hanifa follow, the Abrahamic monotheistic faith. But the problem is that there's no record of any cult or any group of Hanifa. And so when you go into history, if you're looking at the Abrahamic monotheistic faiths, you will find it's either Judaism or Christianity. You see. Now, why would some still argue that Khadijah was a convert or greatly influenced by Roman Christianity? Because it's in a hadith. We're going to look at that today. So they were in close proximity. And look at this. Excuse me. We're going to look at a little bit more pertaining to that. Let's see what we can find. World Atlas, contrary to popular belief, we're going to find that the Arabic world was greatly influenced by Christianity. So if we look briefly to our right, we have AI overview to give us a primer. It said Arabic Christians. Yes, many Arabs became Christians in the centuries before Islam, with Christianity serving as a major influential religion in pre-Islamic Arabia, particularly in the 5th and 6th centuries. Significant populations existed in the northeast, which is the Persian Gulf, northwest near Rome, and south Nadran, Yemen. Oh, we got Arabic Christians. So in Atlas to our left here, we have atlas.com. Contrary to popular belief, the native population of the Arabic world is not exclusively made up of Muslims. There is a significant population of Arabs who practice Christianity, who were commonly known as Arab Christians. The ancestry of these Arab Christians goes back to the genesis of Christianity in the 1st century Common Era. The center of Arab Christianity during the pre-Islamic period was in Nadran, an ancient city situated in southern Arabia. The Roman Catholic Church even canonized the leader of Arab Christians in the city of Al-Harith as Saint Aretas. And this is worldatlas.com. So they say Khadijah was a Hanif, but the Arabs who would have been following an Abrahamic monotheistic faith, they were Christians. Some were Jews. Some converted to Judaism, is argued. So according to Britannica.com, if you look up Hanif, it says there is no evidence that a true Hanif cult existed in pre-Islamic Arabia. But there were certain individuals who, having repudiated the old gods, prepared the way for Islam, but embraced neither Judaism nor Christianity. There are individuals who didn't want to follow the polytheistic teachings or gods of the Arabs, and they according to Britannica.com, they prepared the way for Islam, but they had no faith, they had no customs. So you ask, what was Khadijah's customs? Meaning, if if you are a Jew, you celebrate Passover. If you are a Roman Christian, you celebrated Christmas. If you practice Islam now, you celebrate Ramadan, which is a offshoot of the Day of Atonement and Lent. But what we have is they have customs. What customs was she following? They can't tell you because there was no cult or group of people under any kind of religious organization called the Hanif. It's just their way of calling Khadijah righteous and following a monotheistic faith without admitting that she was Christian. But there's something else about this here. And remember, I told you, it depends on what kind of Christian you're making reference to. It depends on what type you're making reference to. So what we first want to do as we investigate this here, we want to go into Sahih al-Bukhari, section 4953, and let's investigate these Islamic foundations. Because we have all of a sudden become apologetic to Islam. We don't realize, especially those of us who claim to be believers in the Bible or believers in God, we sort of get wrapped up into the worldly things and the worldly concepts and beliefs and ideologies, and we don't really recognize the dangerous practices of those who tend to follow the Islamic, or for that matter, any religion that is contrary to the teachings of the prophets. We don't understand how grave and dangerous that is because the human being judge because this might be a nice person, or I live around them, or I know these people. Well, the person is one thing, the ideology is something else. And no matter how nice you think an Islamist is, if they are a Muslim, then they must confess these teachings. And even if they are silent towards them, these teachings, which we deal with and talk about in our discussion as we look into Islam and our teachings on the Islamic and Palestinian conflict. There's things in there that, a lot of people really don't know. It's not necessarily on the news, but you have to read their literature. And we want to do that now for today's session on the foundations of Islam. This religion in which have taken hold on great parts of the second and third world, and especially Black Americans as well. Let's go to the Hadith. Sahih al-Bukhari, section 4953. Section 4953, Sahih al-Bukhari. And let's look at something here and see what we can find. 4953. And notice carefully and bear with me as we investigate this here. Chapter 1, 4953, narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet. The commencement of the divine revelation to Allah's messenger was in the form of true dreams in his sleep. For he never had a dream, but it turned out to be true and clear as the bright daylight. Then the love of seclusion was bestowed upon him. So he used to go in seclusion in the cave of Hira, where he used to worship Allah alone, similar to the monks in a monastery. When you read it and study Roman Christianity historically, you would definitely find the similarities that was adopted by the writers of the Quran. And then you will also see how the Hadith is definitely similar to the Talmud of the Jews as a appendage or a reference or a commentary or added teachings to the Torah and the prophets. A lot of similarities, all the way down to the Muslim beads and the Catholic beads. A lot of similarities. But right now, we want to look into the origins, and we're looking at this. I just made this comparison on Muhammad uh, entering a cave of seclusion, similar to the teachings of the monks, Roman Catholic monks. So then the love of seclusion was bestowed upon him, so he used to go in seclusion in the cave of Hira, where he used to worship Allah alone continuously for many nights before returning to his family to take his necessary provision of food for the stay. He would come back to his wife Khadijah again to take provision of food, likewise, till one day he received the guidance while he was in the cave of Hira. An angel came to him and asked him to read. Allah's messenger replied, I do not know how to read. The prophet said, then the angel held me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I felt distressed, could not bear it anymore. He then released me and again asked me to read. And I reply, I do not know how to read. Thereupon he held me again and pressed me a second time till I felt distressed, could not bear it anymore. He then released me and asked me to read. Now I am reading right now from Sahih al-Bukhari, section 4953. And we're looking at the argument of Muhammad receiving the message. Now, I want you to pay attention. We have Khadijah here and we have Muhammad, and he's being confronted by a messenger or angel, and he is asked to read, and he couldn't read. So, therefore, the angel began to, as he said, held him and began to press him into distress. After he explained, he do not know how to read. Continuing, thereupon he held me for the third time and pressed me till I felt distress, could not bear it anymore, and then he released me and said, read in the name of your Lord, who has created all that exists, has created man from a clot, a piece of thick coagulated blood. Read. And your Lord is the most gracious or generous, who has taught the writing by the pen, has taught man that which he knew not. Then Allah's messenger returned with that, the revelation, and his heart severely beating, and the muscles between his neck and shoulders were trembling, till he came upon Khadijah, his wife, and said, cover me. They covered him till his fear was over. And after that, he said to Khadijah, "Oh, Khadijah, what is wrong with me? I was afraid that something bad might happen to me." Then he told her all that happened. Khadijah said, "Nay, but receive the good tidings by Allah. Allah will never disgrace you." So at this time, uh, when we're looking at Allah, we're talking about God. And so now Muhammad, as he's explaining to Khadijah his experiences. Now notice what Khadijah does. First, she's explaining, Khadijah said, "Nay, but receive the good tidings or the gospel by Allah. Allah will never disgrace you. For by Allah, you keep good relations with your kith and kin. Speak the truth, help the poor and the destitute, entertain your guests generously, and assist the deserving calamity stricken." Now, this is again very similar to the teachings of Roman Christianity and the monasteries. Now, let's make another connection here. After she said this, speak truth, keep the poor and the destitute, or help the poor and the destitute, entertain your guests generously, and assist the deserving calamity stricken. Khadijah then took him to Waraqah bin Naufal. Waraqah bin Naufal. Waraqah bin Naufal is who? Waraqa bin bin Naufal. Waraqah bin Naufal, the son of Khadijah's paternal uncle. Waraqah, who become a Christian in the pre-Islamic period and used to write Arabic and also write some portion of the Injil or the gospel in Arabic as much as Allah wished him to write. Waraka is a Roman Christian, and he isn't just a Roman Christian. Waraka, Khadijah's uncle, she consulted as a counselor and brought Muhammad to him because of what he experienced. Khadijah then took him, which is Muhammad, to Waraka, which is a Roman Catholic scribe. That's who he is. A Roman Catholic scribe who translated or transliterated the Angel or the God or the Injil and the Gospel into Arabic. This is the Hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, section 4953. So when you ask, well, what was the religion of Khadijah? Oh, they say she was a Hanif. Well, Waraka, according to that definition, in the context of the Arabic rendering, Waraka was a Hanif too. According to that argument, by him being a Roman Christian, he had renounced the polytheistic ways of Arabic and began to serve, according to Islam, pre-Islamic period, he would have been following the monotheistic Abrahamic faith, which people call Christianity today, or Roman Catholicism. He was a counselor to not only Khadijah, but Khadijah also brought Muhammad to him, and he began to counsel Muhammad. Now, Khadijah said to Waraka, "Oh, my cousin, listen to what your nephew has to say." Waraka said, "O my nephew, what have you seen?" The prophet then described whatever he seen. Waraka said, "This is the same angel Jabril or Gabriel who was sent to Musa or Moses. I wish I were young or could live and said some other words." Allah's messenger asked, "Will these people drive me out?" He replied in the affirmative and said, "Any one man who came with something similar to that what you have brought was treated with hostility." So he's going to be a counsel for his time remaining to Muhammad. Um, Therefore, anecdotal evidence argues that Khadijah was also influenced by Roman Christianity, and some say that she was actually a convert to Roman Christianity and dwelt in the monasteries. Muslims do not confirm this, but at the same time, Muslims cannot find any religious sect called the Hanif. As Encyclopedia Britannica said, there is no evidence that one ever existed. So this religion of Khadijah, Hanif, who was supposed, which is translated as true believer or devout or upright, the one following the right path of monotheistic Abrahamic faith and following the faith of Abraham, it was either Judaism or Christianity at that time. Yes, you thought that you, especially black people in America, they thought that they were getting away from the white man's religion, and they messed around and got so entangled and misled by this whole white black issue that was created by the ruling class, the aristocratic class, that they have been deceived again and not looking at the content, but listening to all of the rhetoric: white man the devil, white man this, white man that. They went off on the deep end like white people went off on the deep end with all the rumors about black people. Black people went off on the deep end with all the rumors about white people. People not necessarily investigating thoroughly, looking at the complexity of social relations. They have been deceived. So now you have people joining Islam because it was just simply non-white. That was the appeal. And you, by not reading the Bible, argue that the Bible has something to do with ethnicities and white people. And now you find yourself serving a religion uh 2 time or quadruple fold the child of hell than the Roman Catholic uh, ideology. Let's look how this goes. Why should we stop there before we close for today's session? Because we want to look at this bit by bit, lay the foundations, and let's look and see, not only does the hadith confirm that Muhammad and his wife was receiving counsel from their relative, which was himself, Waraka was himself a Roman Catholic scribe. You see, he was a scribe. All right. Now, let's look into the Quran, Surah 3, and let's confirm or gather more data for the argument of Islam being the Arabic form of Roman Christianity. And we will further argue that it is a religion of Antichrist, it is a religion of conquest, It's a religion of conflict. And this religion found its foundations from Roman Catholicism, and it began to be believed by those who had animosity against the children of Israel for centuries. If we go to Surah 3 to see the influence of Waraka, the cousin of Khadijah, the Roman Catholic scribe, according to the Hadith Sahih al-Bukhari, section 4953. We go to Surah 3 in the Quran, Surah 3, and we'll start at 45 and look at the arguments that the Quran presents and see the influences of Roman Christianity. And we could probably understand the Christians in whom Muhammad had hostility against, and the Christians in whom Muhammad wanted to make friends with, or the Islamists wanted to make friends with. But Surah 3:45, it reads, "Behold, the angel said, O Mary, Allah giveth thee glad tidings of a word from him. His name will be Christ Jesus, the Son of Mary, held in honor in this world and the hereafter, and of the company of those nearest to Allah. He shall speak to the people in childhood and in maturity, and he shall be of the company of the righteous." Now, this lie right here is something that was big among the Roman Christians. You have a lot of these extra books that they talk about when Jesus was a child and what he did and how he practiced forms of magic and did miracles as a child, the missing 20 years or so. All that's a lie. And the reason why is because people don't understand the narrative. The narrative of Yeshua ben David was simply to bear witness to the promise made to Abraham, and that the Messiah, that is to bring the nation of Israel to the forefront again, as the vanguard to bring the world to social justice and to undermine all forms of oppression. Yeshua ben David reflection was not about himself, but he had to argue none other than the word of the law and prophets. He did not speak to the people as a youth because his ministry didn't start there. It wasn't about him. That's why he wrote no new books. He was simply used to be the messenger and the redeemer, and to bring the message of the law and the prophets, the messenger of the Creator, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yud-He, Wah-He. He is to bring that message of the prophets to the people. All his childhood had nothing to do with anything, and that is why when he began to do miracles, the people in his city, according to the scriptures, looked at him strange. Isn't this just the son of Joseph? Isn't this the son of Mary? Who was he? He didn't do anything out of the ordinary because the attention wasn't to be on him. It was all about his ministry. That's why when he began his ministry, even his own brothers and sisters didn't believe, because it's argued he didn't do anything out of the ordinary as a youth. That's why it was hard to believe that he was anybody when he began to manifest the power of Elohim among the people. So this idea that he will speak in childhood and maturity is a lie. But these were fables circulating in the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth centuries among Roman Christians. Once you study the history, you will see the fallacy all through the author work in this Arabic manuscript. But we won't stop there. Verse 47, she said, O my Lord, how shall I have a son when no man hath touched me? He said, even so, Allah createth what he willeth. When he hath decreed a plan, he but saith to it, be, and it is. So she's arguing she was a virgin, and the Muslims argue Yeshua ben David was born of a virgin. But notice this. And Allah will teach him the book and wisdom, the law and the gospel. See, they still think the gospel is a separate book because the gospel was considered a separate book in his day because you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and the writings of Paul. But in the Hebrew scriptures, the gospel is part and parcel of the Tanakh. You see, so what he's saying, okay, well, he will learn the book of wisdom, the law, and the gospel. All right. Then it says, and appoint him a messenger to the children of Israel with this message: I have come to you with a sign from your Lord, in that I make for you out of clay, as it were, a figure of a bird, and breathe into it, and it becomes a bird by Allah's leave. And I heal those born blind and the lepers, and I quicken the dead by Allah's leave. And I declare to you what ye eat and what ye store in your houses, surely therein is a sign for you, if ye did believe. I have come to you to attest the law which was before me, and to make lawful for you part of what was before forbidden to you. I have come to you with a sign from your Lord, so fear Allah and obey me. He's coming with the damn doctrine of the Roman Catholics here. He's telling you that Jesus has come. He have now come and is making lawful for you, which was before unlawful. This is the Roman Catholic Church that the law and the Torah was done away with. This is not, so we have a direct connection of Muhammad or the Islamist teaching saying that part of the Torah is done away with and that things which were unlawful are now lawful for you. And it's no coincidence that his counselor, Warkoff, Khadijah's cousin, and Khadijah herself were in association and under the counsel of the Roman Catholics. Even so, Warkoff, according to the Sahih al-Bukhari Hadith, section 4953, says not only was he a Christian, but he was also a Christian scribe who translated the Gospels into Arabic. And this is none other than that teaching right here in the Quran that Jesus has come to do away with some of the laws, which is not true. This is a total misunderstanding of the Gospels, and this misunderstanding was delivered unto Muhammad by his counselor, who was Warqa, and Warqa was also mistaught by his teachers of the Roman Catholic faith, and some argue one of his influencers was Augustine. Now, I haven't pulled that up. I just read it. I haven't vetted it, but I have read that's what some argue. still. Now, I told you it's two types of Christians. One Christian is very similar to the Jew, the Judeo-Christians, the Nazarenes, who still kept the laws. And this is arguably why in Surah 5, let's go over to Surah 5, it is said this. Some Christians are your friends, some Christians are not. Now look what he said about these Christians. Surah 5, section 51, chapter or section 8, verse 51. O ye who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors to each other. And he amongst you that turns to them for friendship is of them. Verily, Allah guideth not a people unjust. See, you have to argue now who and what Christians was he talking about? Because every Christian and Jews know that the Torah is not done away with. Okay. Muhammad taught it was. Islamists teach it was. And they have a whole lot of other teachings, but we're going to investigate in our other teachings, most high willing. Now, they also teach that Jesus is going to come back and judge the world. Another teaching that was delivered to Muhammad. Here you find it in Sahih al-Bukhari, section 2222. Section 2222. I want to read this and we got to follow up. We're going to follow up and juxtapose the scriptures to this because we have to investigate this Islam that people believe is so innocent. And you don't realize the fury of the Creator is against all evildoers, false prophets, and sorcerers, and all who allow Satan to guide them. They shall feel it and grieve. There is no peace to the wicked, saith Yahweh. You think that they're your friends? You haven't did your homework. You think you could believe them, and now in the geopolitical world, people are so confused and backwards, and they refuse to take the time to go search it out and find out what's what. But God willing, we will have our series and teach thoroughly about the Palestinian and Zionist conflict. And this is a part where you can also learn. It will add more to the background of that teaching. Now, what we have here, Sahih al-Bukhari, section 222, narrated Abu Hurari or Hurara, excuse me, Huraira, Abu Huraira, Hurairah, narrated this. It reads, Allah's messenger said, by him, Allah, in whose hands my soul is, surely the son of Maryam, or Mary, Isa, Jesus, will shortly descend amongst you, people, Muslims, and will judge mankind justly by the law of the Quran as a just ruler, and will break the cross and kill the pigs and abolish the jizya, a tax taken from non-Muslims who are under the protection of the Muslim government. under the protection of the Muslim government. Ain't that more like under the oppression of the Muslim government? But nevertheless, we have Jesus coming back. According to the Muslims, he shall descend amongst the Muslims and will judge mankind justly by the law of the Quran. This is Hadith Sahih al-Bukhari, section 222. And we read one of the laws of the Quran, that Jesus has come to make lawful to you things which were formerly unlawful. What did our elders teach about this apostasy? And we got more to show you to prove that Islam is none other than Antichrist, a fourfold child of hell than the Roman Catholic ideology. Look at this here. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 11. Let's go into the writings of the elders, the Tanakh teachers. And let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And I am reading from the MCT Brit Kadasha Interlinear, or the Hebrew New Testament. Okay. And I am going into 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And I want you to pay attention and juxtapose it to what we read today. And we're going to follow up. We had to first just get the foundations of Islam. And then we're going to follow up geopolitically, God willing, and everything else. And argue that the people very well may be supporting the devil and his work. Sometimes you got to stand down. If you found yourself supporting anybody other than Nebuchadnezzar, you was in trouble. If you found yourself supporting anybody other than Cyrus, you was working against the hand of the Creator. You better not judge by how you feel, but judge righteously through prayer and study. Prayer, supplication, and study. Now watch this. In 2 Corinthians 11, verse 1. Oh, that you would bear with me a little while in the impulsiveness of boasting. But yet even so, bear with me. For I am jealous over you with a jealousy of God. For I betrothed you to one husband to present you as a morally clean virgin to the anointed one. But I fear lest somehow, as the serpent thoroughly deluded Eve by his shrewd cunning, in this manner your mental disposition should be corrupted from the fidelity, the one in the anointed one. For in fact, if one who is coming does officially proclaim another Jesus or Yehoshua, whom we did not already officially proclaim, or if you receive another spirit, which you did not already receive, or another gospel or good news, which you did not already accept, you were bearing with him beautifully. Or as our King James said, you will bear with him. In other words, you will tolerate it. You will fall for it. You're going to believe it. You're going to believe it. That's what he feared. You're going to fall for it beautifully. It's going to be laid out. Who is this? Let's go down to verse 13. For such men as these are false ambassadors, workmen, full of guile, disguising themselves as ambassadors of Anointed One or Christ. And this is no marvelous thing, for the adversary, accuser himself, or Satan, is disguised as an angel of light. Accordingly, it is no great thing if his attendants also are disguised as attendants of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Oh, yeah. You got a whole lot of daggone messengers out there that lied to you. They done gave you false doctrines of white this, white that, everything based on race, trying to argue that your social conditions is because of race, ethnicities. No, you've been lied to. It's a false doctrine. And that false doctrine messed up your psychology so much among you black Americans, or among us black Americans. Now, a new religion and a new gospel was given, and because it had a black face on it, you ran to it like flies to dung. And it was none other than a repackaged form of Roman Christianity by way of Arabic packaging. And you fell right for it. And your celebrities fell for it, from Muhammad Ali's to Malcolm X's, Drew Ali. I believe his name was Timothy Drew. They Elijah Pooh. They all fell for the Rakim. Now he call himself Allah. All the 5%ers and poor righteous teachers, and all of them spread this false doctrine all through the cities among the youth, and planted the seeds of this false doctrine, because in their hearts, anything that had to do with white was wrong. And it's the same way today. You see black and brown people who just as evil and have the same evil intent, but since they don't have the power, they have to be victimized by the terrible white man. And here it is again, people running on that race theory. Anything white, boy, yeah, white people did their thing. They did a lot of wrong, just like black folks did a lot of wrong. Black empires crushed the world. Nimrod was one of the first oppressors, which was an Ethiopian who crushed the world. The Egyptians crushed and pillaged the world and enslaved and pillaged for the sake of their feudal expansionist tendencies. I mean, unless we study history, we're going to fall for our emotions. And this is what we have followed. And now it is very difficult for people to judge in their emotions, wrapped up in race theory, and not looking at the facts, not understanding that social phenomenon isn't determined by any ethnicity. Nevertheless, we have this happening to us. Another gospel been preached. We looked at it in the Quran. We realized that Muhammad, counselor, was Warqa, which was a Roman Catholic scribe. And then what do we have? The elders teaching us now in 2 Timothy 3. We're going to go to 2 Timothy 3. 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. And let's see what it says. 2 Timothy chapter 3, and notice this. And we're going to start reading at verse 13. But evil men of clay, or Adam, mankind, and adept smooth talkers. Adept means skillful. Skillful smooth talkers shall continually advance toward the more wicked thing, deceiving and being deceived. Yeah, it sound like he making a whole lot of sense. White man this, white man that. Race this, race that. Sound like they're making a whole lot of sense. But yet, they deceiving and being deceived. But don't know that what we're bringing upon ourselves as we reject the Torah and the prophets, which the world hate. That's another reason why you have uh, a lot of the people who are called themselves lefties, or the leftists, anarchists. They hate the Bible. They'd tell you they don't want you to mention the Bible in the schools, but then they'll bring the doctrines of paganism. They'll bring the doctrines of all other religions. They'll bring their moral codes in same-sex marriages. They'll bring their ideology in young girls and young boys making the transition to become opposite sex. So if you're a young girl, you can make a transition to be a boy. If you're a boy, you can make a transition to be a girl. These doctrines they want to introduce. Certain school districts allow or they close in schools for Muslim holidays and celebrations. I don't know of them closing schools for Jewish celebrations, Judeo-Christian celebrations. You see? But anything that have to do with the Bible, they don't want nothing to do with it. Anyone who proclaimed the Bible is great hostility. We don't know the evil that we walking into because we caught up in emotion and drama. Let's look at one more for today's session. Galatians chapter 1. Galatians chapter 1. And let's see what the Apostle Saul wrote for us here in Galatians chapter 1. Bear with me a second as we get there to Galatians. And let's notice what the apostle was bringing out. Galatians chapter 1. And I'll start reading at verse 8. Galatians 1, verse 8. It reads, "But yet even if we ourselves or an angel from out of heaven shall proclaim a gospel or a good news to you, contrary to that which we already proclaimed to you." That's why the Judeo-Christians rejected Muhammad. He said an angel came to him. He said a message came to him. And allegedly, according to them, his uncle in the hadith, which was Khadijah's cousin, that's what they called him. Khadijah said, "Come listen to what your nephew had to say." Waraka began to give him counsel, give him encouragement, to give him recognition, to classify him as a messenger of God. But an angel came and he was a proclaimer of a different message by arguing things that were unlawful to you are no longer unlawful to you. Some things that were unlawful to you are no longer unlawful. So the Elders are arguing, but yet even, Galatians 1 and 8, if we ourselves or an angel from out of heaven shall proclaim a good news to you, contrary to that which we already proclaimed to you, let him be irrevocably damned to destruction. Irrevocably damned to destruction. This is us continuing in our efforts to lay the foundation of Islam to understand the nature of the Islamists and what we're dealing with. This hopefully will also help bring more understanding to the other arguments we present pertaining to the struggle over the land of Israel, which the Romans named Palestine in 135, I believe, AD, in order to remove the name of Israel from off the map, which the psalmist argued. And we are grateful for the work of the Almighty. And it is argued that, as the prophet Noah said, Japheth will enlarge himself and dwell in the tents of Shem. And for some reason, that the sons of Japheth, many of them have had the strength of battle. And they have held that book. Whether they understand it or not, they have been willing to give their lives to a book that was penned by the ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob children, our fathers. I believe people should take notice. We're going to close for today's session. We're going to pick this up in other parts so we can further analyze this and also look at the spread of Islam and how it was spread through Black America, especially, and follow it all the way in its past, I should say, and follow it to the present day. So we're going to look at the past. We're going to look how it affected the people as Islam began to grow and spread throughout Asia, Africa. And hopefully we can cover all of this and help people understand what we're looking at today when they watch the news and not get entangled in all of the rhetoric and misinformation. I'm Murray Yehuda closing out for today's session. Most High willing, we will meet again as we further discuss Islam, Antichrist, Conquest, and Roman Christianity. Thank you for your time.